You're watching Narrify.
The day I won the lottery never felt real. Even now, looking back, the memory feels softened around the edges, like a dream you swear happened but can't fully hold on to. I'd stopped at a gas station after work, exhausted and half asleep, and on impulse bought a lottery ticket from the stand near the counter. I didn't play often, maybe once every few months, usually as a joke to myself, muttering that I'd spent $3 to win absolutely nothing again. But that day, fate stepped in with a crooked smile. The clerk, a bored-looking teenager, watched as I scratched the ticket against the counter, expecting disappointment as usual, until the second the numbers appeared and my heart slammed against my ribs. Matching numbers, all of them. I checked again and again until the clerk leaned over and asked if I was okay. And when I croaked out that I thought I'd won 10 million, he stared like I just claimed to be royalty before screaming and shaking me with excitement. My mind wasn't on the ticket or the money, it was on my wife, Rachel, the person I believed would celebrate with me like it was a shared miracle, the person I believed would never betray me. I called her immediately, and when I told her, she gasped, cried, and told me I deserved everything good in the world. Hearing her happiness filled me with warmth, and in that adrenaline-drunk moment, I made the mistake that would destroy everything. "Let's put the money in your account." She froze, then softly agreed, and I didn't see the shift until later. A flicker in her eyes that I dismissed. 2 days later, we sat at the bank watching the transfer go through. She held her phone like a newborn, whispering that we were rich, and when I said we did it, she corrected me. "You did it." Over the following weeks, Rachel changed. Buying things without telling me, guarding her phone, quitting her job out of nowhere, staying out late, meeting friends I'd never heard of, brushing off concerns by calling me insecure. When I asked to move the lottery money into a joint account, she became defensive, angry, accusing me of being controlling, insisting it stayed in her account because I had said she should handle everything. Then I overheard a voicemail from a lawyer. She had visited them without telling me, and when I confronted her, she coldly said she was protecting herself. But the breaking point wasn't a fight. It was overhearing her on the phone one afternoon, whispering, "I want out. The money's already in my account. He gave it willingly, it's legally mine, he won't fight me, he's too weak." When she hung up, her face drained seeing me there. She admitted she wanted a divorce, mocked me for wanting to move the funds, said 10 million wasn't mine because I didn't work for it, claimed she was protecting the money from me, and finally told me to pack my things because the house was hers now. She smirked when she said I had always been too trusting, and that was the moment I realized I was married to a stranger. I didn't leave the house that night, even though Rachel told me to. I slept on the couch, unable to close my eyes, unable to comprehend how quickly love could turn into a weapon. The woman I once imagined a lifetime with had morphed into someone I didn't recognize, someone cold, calculating, almost proud of the pain she was inflicting, and she didn't come downstairs once to check on me, not to talk, not even to pretend to care. The house felt hollow, like an echo of a life that had ended long before I realized it. When morning finally came, I got up with stiff limbs and a blurry mind, unsure what to do or who I was anymore. All I knew was I needed answers, not emotional manipulation or half-truths. Rachel came down around noon dressed in expensive loungewear she'd bought with what she believed was her money. She didn't acknowledge me at first, poured coffee, scrolled her phone, as if the night before hadn't happened at all. "Rachel," I finally said, "we need to talk." She sipped slowly without looking up. "I don't see a reason to," swallowed hard and said I'd heard what she said on the phone. She set the cup down with a gentle click that carried more disdain than a slam and told me I shouldn't eavesdrop. "You plan to divorce me," I said quietly. "You plan to take everything." She shrugged. "So?" My voice cracked. "Rachel, you blindsided me. How long has this been going on?" She sighed dramatically like the victim and said honestly, "Since you put the money in my account." The floor tilted beneath me. "So, all of this was because of the money?" Her eyes were cold and distant. "What else is marriage about?" The words were knives. "Rachel, I loved you." She actually laughed. "Love is cute, Liam, but it doesn't pay bills. It doesn't secure the future. It doesn't get you the things you deserve. And what do you deserve? Everything, she said simply. For the first time since the win, I saw the truth. I hadn't changed. She had, or maybe she'd always been this person and money simply peeled away the layers. I'm not giving up the money, she said. It belongs to me. You made that choice. I trusted you. That's your problem. A numbness spread through me. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by a stranger who saw me not as a partner, but as an obstacle. I walked out without another word because if I'd stayed a second longer I'd have broken. The same day I called a lawyer. Jordan Hale, calm, methodical, in his late 50s, who'd seen every version of betrayal. He listened quietly before saying, Liam, I'm glad you came early, because your wife is preparing for war. My breath hitched. She contacted you? He shook his head. No, I know the pattern. Sudden spending, secret phone calls, withdrawals, hostility, entitlement. People don't change with money. Their true tendencies amplify. What do? First, don't confront her again. Second, don't leave the marital home unless legally advised. Third, start gathering proof. Proof of what? That the money was never a gift, he said. That it was entrusted to her for safekeeping, not ownership. I hadn't written anything down. He leaned back. Most husbands don't. But texts, voicemails, witnesses, bank statements. Everything leaves fingerprints. And something tells me your wife has left plenty. I felt hope for the first time. In days, but Jordan warned. Also prepare yourself emotionally. A person who chooses greed over love will not hesitate to lie under oath. A chill ran through me. What are the chances I lose the money? He paused. Not if we play it right. I returned home that evening feeling more grounded and armed with a plan, but nothing prepared me for what I found. Rachel on the couch with her laptop open, not bothering to close it when I walked in. Maybe she assumed I wouldn't dare look. Maybe she thought I was too weak, but something inside me snapped. Rachel, I said, setting my bag down. We need rules if we're going to live under the same roof. She didn't look up. We won't be under the same roof for long. What does that mean? Once the divorce is filed, you'll move out. I'm not leaving. She slammed her laptop shut and stood. This is my house now. No, Rachel, I said calmly. It isn't. Her cheeks flushed. Oh, really? You think you can just stay here? It's marital property. My name is on the deed. Her jaw clenched, a visible crack in her assumptions. Then, like an animal cornered, she changed tactics. Liam, sweetie, she said, voice suddenly soft, reaching out. Let's not fight. We can. I stepped back. Stop. Don't do that. Her expression shifted from fake affection to pure loathing in seconds. You're unbelievable, she hissed. You never deserved that money. Maybe, I said quietly, but I didn't steal it. Her eyes widened in fury. You think I stole from you? I think you stopped being honest with me a long time ago. She shoved past me and stormed upstairs. I stood there shaking, half with anger, half with grief. Then I saw her laptop still warm. I shouldn't have looked, but betrayal invites betrayal, and what I saw shattered whatever illusions I'd clung to. Emails. Dozens. Between Rachel and a lawyer I'd never heard of. Between her and a coworker named Daniel, and between her and someone labeled Invest Advisor, private, discussing how to secure the funds, how to argue the money was a gift, how to prove I was unfit, to manage finances, how to get me removed from the house, and how to file divorce papers to maximize her payout. And then the worst line, once the divorce is final, I'll transfer everything to the offshore account. My vision blurred. My wife wasn't just trying to leave me, she was trying to erase me. That night I waited in the kitchen with the screen facing the doorway. She froze when she saw it. Why are you going through my things? She demanded. Because you're planning to rob me, I said. She masked fear with arrogance. It's not robbery if it's mine. It was never yours, I said. I entrusted it to you. That's not what the law says. I didn't expect you to hide things from me. You should have. My heart cracked. Rachel. How long have you been planning this? She hesitated. Just a second. Long enough to say the truth I didn't want to hear. Since the money hit the account. My chest tightened. So everything since then. All of it was fake? She shrugged. People change. No. I whispered. People reveal. She rolled her eyes. Spare me the drama. You were a nobody before this money. Now I don't need to be tied to your failures anymore. Failures, the word hit harder than betrayal. I loved you, I whispered. And that was your mistake, she replied. And that was the last moment I saw the woman I once knew. She turned into a stranger when she said, You're too weak for wealth. Too emotional. Too naive. The money will destroy you if I give it back. A bitter laugh escaped me. You think keeping it will make you stronger? Yes, she said. I earned it. You didn't. I tolerated you for years. That counts. I stared at her, seeing her greed, entitlement, and lack of remorse. Then I said 4 words that changed everything. I hired a lawyer. She went pale. You what? You're not the only one preparing for a fight. Her mouth fell open, shock and rage twisting her face. You had no right. I had every right. She trembled with fury. You think you can beat me? You think you can win? Liam, I'm smarter than you. I'm stronger than you. I will take everything you have. No, I said calmly. You already took everything that mattered. For the first time she faltered, only for a moment, then hissed, This isn't over, and stormed upstairs, slamming the door. No, it wasn't over, it was only beginning. Over the next weeks the house turned into a battlefield. We barely spoke except through lawyers or hostile glances as she transferred money, liquidated accounts, contacted advisors, talked to her lawyer. Daily, planning her exit, but she underestimated one thing. I wasn't as naive as she believed. Jordan walked me through freezing shared assets, monitoring large transactions, collecting evidence, gathering witnesses, tracking her spending, and preparing for retaliation. Retaliation came swiftly. Rachel emptied our joint savings, rerouted bills to her name, locked me out of accounts she created, and tried to get me removed from the house for emotional instability. Her lawyer demanded spousal support, the house, 100% of the lottery winnings, my car, and half my future earnings. It was insane, unhinged, but entitlement has no ceiling. One night as I sat in the dark living room trying to understand how my life had exploded, Jordan called, Liam, prepare yourself. For what? For her next move. What move? She's going to try to make you look unfit, emotionally unstable, irresponsible. She wants to prove you can't manage money. That's her angle. I rubbed my face. Rachel knows me better than anyone. She knows that isn't true. That's exactly why she knows how to twist it. My stomach dropped. But don't worry, Jordan said, voice steady. We're building a stronger case than she expects. What do you need from me? Strength, he said. Because betrayal hurts, and she's counting on that hurt to make you collapse. He hung up, and I stared at the wall long because he was right. I was hurt, and Rachel was counting on that, but I wasn't going to collapse or hand her my life because she wanted my money. I'd already lost my wife and refused to lose myself. Then one morning Jordan called with a tone I hadn't heard. Liam, something new came up. What is it? We found a series of transactions Rachel made. Large ones. Hidden. My heart sped. How large? $200,000. My mind froze. Where did it go? Jordan sighed. To a person named Daniel. Daniel, her coworker. The one she always said was just a friend. A realization. Hit so hard it took the air from my lungs. Is she with him? We don't know yet. But the financial connection is undeniable. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was emotional, maybe physical, maybe more. Suddenly everything made sense. The secret calls, long lunches, late nights, sudden confidence. The advice she followed, the plan to take the money. Rachel didn't become greedy, alone. She had help and was preparing to build a new life with my money without me. I sat trembling. Jordan's voice softened. I know this is painful, Liam, but ironically this helps your case. How? It proves motive, deceit, and misconduct. Judges don't look kindly on spouses who manipulate assets while having undisclosed relationships. I didn't respond because it didn't feel like victory, it felt like heartbreak wrapped in legal terminology. Jordan exhaled. I'll say this again. Betrayal isn't just about lies. It's about the part of you that trusted those lies. His words hit hard, but he wasn't wrong. Rachel hadn't just betrayed me. She betrayed the version of me that believed she would never hurt me, and that version was gone forever. I woke up before dawn on the day the case finally went to trial. The house was a hollow shell that still smelled faintly of Rachel's perfume. And for a moment I felt foolish for thinking victory would erase the emptiness, but the gavel was coming down today, and that meant answers, or at least a legal ending. Jordan picked me up early, sitting in the passenger seat like a man transporting fragile evidence. Steady, watchful, prepared. You good? He asked. Not really, I said, but ready. Court felt different from anything I'd imagined. Cameras dotted the hallways, reporters whispered like background static, courthouse staff moved in rehearsed steps, and the judge, a woman with an unyielding expression, seemed like the kind of person who made people tell the truth whether they wanted to or not. We started with opening statements. Rachel's attorney painted a picture of a charitable, overworked wife who was handed an unexpected windfall and became fearful for her future, speaking in velvet to feed the jury's sympathy about stress and vulnerability. Then Jordan stood up. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't need to, he walked through the timeline with the calm precision of someone reading an irrefutable ledger. The moment I scratched the ticket, the bank deposit into Rachel's account, the messages asking me to entrust her, the receipts, the transfers. He showed emails, the ones between Rachel and the offshore advisor, the ones where she talked about transferring funds out of reach, and he pulled up the transcript of the very phone call I'd overheard, the one where she said, I want out. The money's already in my account. The courtroom went quiet. Rachel's face grew ashen. Her fingers clutched the side of her chair until her knuckles went white, and she looked like a person watching her world dissolve in real time. The most damning piece of evidence, the one I'd prayed would exist, was the recording Jordan had driven an investigator to retrieve days earlier. A hidden call where Rachel talked to Daniel, the coworker, not bothering to disguise her voice because she didn't think anyone would ever hear it. And in the recording she laughed and said, once this is done we'll split everything. He'll be gone, and we'll have what we need. Daniel's name flashed on the screen and my stomach dropped as if the floor had fallen out from under me again. The prosecution played the clip and I watched Rachel crumble. She tried to explain, to say the words were out of context, to own the confusion and mistakes. She looked at me from the witness stand with eyes that used to be warm and certain and now were wild and pleading. Liam, she said, voice breaking, you have to understand. Understand what? I wanted to say, but Jordan had warned me not to speak, and still the emotion in my chest was too big to hold back. Her attorney called witnesses who claimed they'd seen changes, vague testimony about different behavior and stress, but when Jordan called my accountant, the financial advisor, and the private investigator, their testimony painted a different picture. Strategic transfers, hidden conversations, premeditation. The advisor testified Rachel asked how to structure transfers to an offshore account. The investigator testified about multiple meetings between Rachel and Daniel, frequent cash withdrawals, and a chain of transfers that ended in an account registered to a shell company. Then came the emotional testimony nobody expected. One of Rachel's friends took the stand and admitted she'd forwarded the hidden recording to Claire, Rachel's sister, and eventually to us. Trial. The house was a hollow shell that still smelled faintly of Rachel's perfume, and for a moment I felt foolish for thinking victory would erase the emptiness, but the gavel was coming down today, and that meant answers, or at least a legal ending. Jordan picked me up early, sitting in the passenger seat like a man transporting fragile evidence. Steady, watchful, prepared. You good? He asked. Not really, I said, but ready. Court felt different from anything I'd imagined. Cameras dotted the hallways, reporters whispered like background static, courthouse staff moved in rehearsed steps, and the judge, a woman with an unyielding expression, seemed like the kind of person who made people tell the truth whether they wanted to or not. We started with opening statements. Rachel's attorney painted a picture of a charitable, overworked wife who was handed an unexpected windfall and became fearful for her future, speaking in velvet to feed the jury's sympathy about stress and vulnerability. Then Jordan stood up. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't need to, he walked through the timeline with the calm precision of someone reading an irrefutable ledger. The moment I scratched the ticket, the bank deposit into Rachel's account, the messages asking me to entrust her, the receipts, the transfers. He showed emails, the ones between Rachel and the offshore advisor, the ones where she talked about transferring funds out of reach, and he pulled up the transcript of the very phone call I'd overheard, the one where she said, "I want out. The money's already in my account." The courtroom went quiet. Rachel's face grew ashen. Her fingers clutched the side of her chair until her knuckles went white, and she looked like a person watching her world dissolve in real time. The most damning piece of evidence, the one I'd prayed would exist, was the recording Jordan had driven an investigator to retrieve days earlier. A hidden call where Rachel talked to Daniel, the coworker, not bothering to disguise her voice because she didn't think anyone would ever hear it, and in the recording she laughed and said, "Once this is done, we'll split everything. He'll be gone, and we'll have what we need." Daniel's name flashed on the screen and my stomach dropped as if the floor had fallen out from under me again. The prosecution played the clip and I watched Rachel crumble. She tried to explain, to say the words were out of context, to own the confusion and mistakes. She looked at me from the witness stand with eyes that used to be warm and certain and now were wild and pleading. "Liam," she said, voice breaking, "you have to understand." "Understand what?" I wanted to say, but Jordan had warned me not to speak, and still the emotion in my chest was too big to hold back. Her attorney called witnesses who claimed they'd seen changes, vague testimony about different behavior and stress. But when Jordan called my accountant, the financial advisor, and the private investigator, their testimony painted a different picture. Strategic transfers, hidden conversations, premeditation. The advisor testified Rachel asked how to structure transfers to an offshore account. The investigator testified about multiple meetings between Rachel and Daniel, frequent cash withdrawals, and a chain of transfers that ended in an account registered to a shell company. Then came the emotional testimony nobody expected. One of Rachel's friends took the stand and admitted she'd forwarded the hidden recording to Claire, Rachel's sister, and eventually to us, tears in her voice as she explained she couldn't let it go on, that she'd watched Rachel change and suspected Daniel was manipulating her. So she recorded him to expose it. Her motive wasn't money but a last-ditch attempt to stop two people from destroying a life. I remember the judge's eyes flicking back and forth, absorbing every detail as the story of greed, manipulation, and betrayal assembled itself so plainly it hurt. During cross-examination, Rachel's posture collapsed. The polished armor her lawyer put on her in opening statements peeled away under precise questioning. Why message Daniel at 2 a.m.? Why advise him that a shell company would be safer? Why call the offshore advisor 2 days after the deposit? Why tell a friend she planned to walk away the moment the account cleared? She claimed fear and being overwhelmed, but when Jordan played the bank statements showing the $200,000 transfer to Daniel, the judge leaned forward and the courtroom became a place where truth could no longer be evaded. After what felt like hours, the judge called a recess. In the hallway, Claire found me and put a hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry this happened," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "So am I," I said, not to her, not to Rachel, but to the fragile reality of trust. The afternoon resumed with Rachel's lawyer trying desperate tactics. Witnesses to question my character, claims of irresponsibility, hints of instability. Emotional maneuvers meant to erode confidence, but Jordan dismantled their points with calm facts and evidence. Finally, the judge ruled on preliminary matters. Freeze assets, prevent significant transfers, and order an examination of the offshore accounts. Her look at Rachel one of disappointment and incredulity. In closing, Rachel's lawyer pleaded for sympathy, a woman who got scared, while my lawyer asked only for fairness and truth, reminding the jury we protect rights and responsibilities. A man won money, entrusted it to his spouse. That trust was deliberately broken, and the law must reflect that. The jury deliberated like a weight pressing on my chest. When they returned, the foreman read the verdict. In favor of Mr. Liam Hayes, the funds belong to Mr. Hayes. The defendant engaged in financial misconduct and undue transfer of assets, and a spousal award is recommended to be denied due to fatal misconduct. Relief washed over me like cold water, exhaustion like night. People around me made sounds, and Rachel put her face in her lawyer's hands and sobbed as if her world had dissolved. After the civil ruling, criminal referrals were discussed because the offshore transfers and deliberate concealment suggested potential fraud. Rachel's lawyer scrambled, and in the weeks that followed, some significant transfers were frozen. Daniel's role came under scrutiny, and the man who'd been a phantom in the background was suddenly exposed with surveillance photos, messages, and payments, placing him at the heart of the conspiracy. Over the next months, the fallout was real. Rachel lost her job when the school district learned of the findings and the recordings and terminated her pending investigation. She lost social standing as neighbors who once greeted her turned away, while Daniel was arrested on charges related to fraud and conspiracy as prosecutors painted him the architect of a plan to capitalize on unsuspecting winners. And the life she'd planned with him crumbled quickly. Yet victory felt thin. Walking out of court with funds protected didn't bring back small evenings, quiet coffee, the habit of small domestic joys. Aftershocks came as angry calls from opportunists, old friends revealing their true colors, and an ache where marriage had been. Months later, Rachel showed up at my door, disheveled, no makeup, eyes hollowed by shame and loss. "Liam," she pleaded, "please, can we talk?" I let her in out of civility, not invitation. She sat like someone who'd rehearsed lines and found none that fit and said she'd lost everything. That Daniel lied and she listened, thinking she was securing us. She was wrong. She had no bravado now, only someone who'd burned bridges and stood with nowhere left to stand. "Why?" I asked, needing answers to make sense of why she'd chosen quick certainty with Daniel over our slow, quiet life. She said she was stupid, scared, wanted power, thought money would give her a version of herself she didn't have, and didn't account for how empty it felt. Something in me softened, not because I wanted her back, but because regret is real and crushing. "Do you want me to forgive you?" I asked. "No," she said. "I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." "I heard you," I said. At the door, she added, "I tried to win a life I couldn't emotionally maintain. You deserved better. I know that." She left and the door closed like an ending. There was no rush of triumph, only the relief of a conclusion. In the months after I set the funds up safely with wise investments, safeguards, trusted trustees, and charitable foundations, I paid off debts quietly and donated to schools and after-school programs, deciding the win would be measured by what it allowed me to build that mattered. Rachel tried to reconnect. A letter, then a call I ignored. She asked to meet and apologize more fully, and I met her once in public months later. She was composed, pale, the plead of apology now a practiced quiet. "I'm not the same person I was," she said. "I know," I replied, "and neither am I." I forgave her in the sense that I could move on. Forgiveness wasn't erasing the past but not letting it define my future. Yet I told her there was no future for us. She chose another path, and that showed who she was. She left with a small, sad smile. "Thank you for everything," she whispered. Walking away finally felt like stepping out of a bad dream, and the hollow place in my chest began to fill with something steadier, rebuilding. I started routines that defined me beyond headlines and courtroom drama. Long evenings of quiet reading, weekends mentoring local kids on financial literacy to teach that windfalls and choices carry responsibility. Money, I learned, can reveal true character but also build real good. 10 million didn't buy shallow happiness. Happiness was quieter. A Sunday coffee with a friend who stayed through the storm, the call from a scholarship student I helped, the peace in watching a child learn to read. Nights when old grief returned softened into memory. The final legal residue was a criminal probe that led to Daniel's conviction on conspiracy charges, his sentencing anticlimactic compared to the quiet work of healing. Rachel's public fall from grace was painful only in the human sense. I don't celebrate suffering, I celebrate truth, and I kept a small memento, the lottery ticket framed on a shelf behind my desk. Not as a trophy, but a reminder that fortune is a test more than a gift. It reveals people and requires stewardship, a lesson I learned the hard way. Years later, when the dust settled and the local news moved on, a neighbor's kid asked me how to do a budget. I smiled and sat down. Teaching that child felt like redemption in small, honest measures. We can't choose the tests life hands us, but we can choose how we answer them. I answered mine not with vengeance or bitterness, but with quiet rebuilding, the deliberate, slow work of living a life that matched the values I believed in. And in that quiet rebuilding I found peace, not because I had won the money but because I had chosen myself.